Welcome to Crunching Tackles, where we break down the hardest hitting social issues in sports. On today's show, LIV Golf is crumbling, the Epstein files enter the world of sports, and Bill Belichick suffers his latest embarrassment. My name is Chad Wylie, and with me, as always, is John Nekrasov. And John, I want to just jump right into the hardest hitting questions that we're going to be talking about. And so, to you, sir, which halftime show will you be watching on Sunday?
That is a hard-hitting question. I think. Well, first of all, are there two? I think.
Are you not
I think,
aware
to be honest,
of this?
I need to be caught up on the lore of the halftime show.
You're
I'm aware
not
of the Bad Bunny.
of the Turning Point USA sponsored Kid Rock halftime show happening.
Wait, is that? I thought that wasn't happening. I thought that was canceled. Is that real? I think my answer has to be both.
You're gonna watch both at the same time.
I think I'm going to dedicate half of the halftime show to Bad Bunny and half of the halftime show to Turning Point USA. I think that's the only fair answer. Not because I necessarily enjoy or am part of either of the target audiences for either of those things, but I'm going to try them both and just feel the experience. I don't know that I've ever actively listened to a Bad Bunny song in my life. Honestly, like I've heard him around. This will be a debut for me in a very real way, which will be interesting.
Yeah, I obviously don't know a whole lot about him other than that he's a very popular Latin artist and his music is in Spanish. I just think it's funny and interesting that Turning Point USA is feels the need to do a rival halftime show featuring Kid Rock as the primary headliner, and it's just gonna be like free on. I believe it's just gonna be like live stream for free on YouTube, just at the same time as the regular halftime show. Is I believe what is happening.
That's so fun. Can I ask?
Yeah,
if you had to start a rival halftime show, who would you choose to headline said halftime show?
Can I have a question
I want us to think about?
Can I have anyone I want, or
yes,
do I need to be reasonable? Youngblood and Aerosmith.
That'll be a good. I feel like honestly, Aerosmith, they've never done a Super Bowl, right?
It would have had to have been a long time ago. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't ring a bell, but I feel like they could though.
Oh no, it was.
I was gonna say
Super Bowl 35.
I was gonna say it would surprise me if they hadn't done one.
Super Bowl 35, headlined by Aerosmith and NSYNC, featuring performances by Mary J. Blige, Britney Spears, Nelly, Tremors, and the Earthquake Horns.
You cannot be serious.
Awesome.
Guys, this is history that we are uncovering live in real time. Hopefully you remember it if you were there. Yeah. I certainly was not aware of what was going on at that time. I think my rival halftime show would be a Hans Zimmer halftime show.
Oh,
that would appeal to my sensibilities very much.
We're not going to talk about the Olympics today, but are you aware that there is a Kazakhstan figure skater who is performing to Dune Part 2?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. That's going to come up later in another episode. We're definitely going to talk about that.
My favorite, the viral tweet that brought it to my attention was someone saying that Timothée Chalamet is just taking his Oscar campaign to whole new levels, which is really funny if you look it up. It's a figure skater just doing his whole routine to the Dune soundtrack, which is something that we approve. Friend of the show, whatever his name is.
Crunching Tackles recommends the one Kazakhstan gold medal that I will be cheering for during the Olympics.
100%. And I am very excited for the Winter Olympics, which we'll get to next show probably.
Yeah, probably next show. John, we have a packed show today. Speaking of, we're going to be talking about the Australian Open, a little bit of Bill Belichick, a little bit of Super Bowl, and then we're going to be talking in our serious topics about both the Epstein files and the some changes to LIV Golf. Before we do that, I just want to say that say thank you and welcome to our YouTube audience. And we've dove into this, and we've been very happy with how it's gone so far, and we're excited to hopefully see that grow. You can subscribe to us, of course, on any podcast platform of your choice, and also follow us on YouTube, where we're posting both short form video content as well as full episodes. So a lot to get into, John. Let's go ahead and dive in if you're ready.
I am ready.
Carlos Alcaraz. We're back in the tennis world. For those new to the podcast, the rivalry between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz has been, I think, one of the major touch points of this podcast over the last 2 years. And specifically last year when they played all 3 of the 4 Grand Slam finals against each other. And we had some amazing matches. And we just had the Australian Open, which we haven't gotten to talk about a whole lot in advance. But Carlos Alcaraz is now the youngest ever player at age 22 to complete the career Grand Slam, which is just a shocking statistic. He did it against Novak Djokovic in 4 sets. He did it with Rafael Nadal in the audience watching him. And it was just a really, really, I guess, night for them, morning for me, but a very, very cool experience to watch the match.
Yeah, it's just, I think as we start this conversation, it's just remarkable what he has accomplished. I think it's easy to take for granted just how good he is. If we take a step back and just think about that for a second, like you said, he's 22 and he has already won every single major. And it's not just that he's won every single major. The level and the rate that he is winning those majors is just genuinely astonishing. He now has 7. And we both listened to the tennis podcast, which is the big player in this sphere. And they were just reading off some of the statistics about the counts of majors that other famous tennis players have gained, and so I was looking it up on Wikipedia. Carlos Alcaraz at 7 majors is already tied for 9th all time at age 22. Like, he is a top 10 tennis player of all time. If he quit right now and never played another tennis game, he would be in the top 10, which is astonishing. And he's tied with John McEnroe. Like, John McEnroe John McEnroe won 7 majors and is like one of the greatest American players of all time. He's a major away from both Jimmy Connors and Andre Agassi. Like, Carlos Alcaraz is already in hollow territory. And I think it was just, before we shift over, because I want to talk about Novak too, and just what an unbelievable tournament he had. But for Carlos specifically, to me, we are reaching the point where, even though Sinner is still here, Sinner will still win majors, I think plenty more over the course of his career. To me, this is becoming maybe not necessarily a fully one-sided rivalry, but one where there's the clear top dog, and Sinner is trying to challenge and knock Carlos off right now. And I don't know that I expect that to change throughout their career, to be honest.
Yeah, we've talked about how in the past, like, to my eye test, Carlos Alcaraz is better. And I don't have like a whole lot of statistics. I guess the statistics are starting to come that way, but that was mostly just based on like my general impression of things. I would say in terms of Sinner, he did do Carlos Alcaraz a huge favor in this particular tournament by wearing out Novak Djokovic in 5 just absolutely grueling sets. And for Novak Djokovic, that win over Sinner to me counts as a Grand Slam victory, given his age and given like what a tremendous accomplishment that was for him at age 38 to beat Jannik Sinner, one of the top 2 players in the world, the back-to-back defending champion of the Australian Open.
Mm-hmm.
And Novak Djokovic beats him in an unbelievable 5-set match that went to, I think, like after 1 a.m. local time. At his age, amazing accomplishment. I do think about Alcaraz, it was very funny for John McEnroe to be told live on the broadcast that Carlos Alcaraz had tied his major total at age 22. I'm not sure if that was something John McEnroe totally appreciated, but he at least took it in a good sport. And so, as we kind of look forward to the rest of this year, do you expect to see Sinner? Are they going to split it 2-2 again this year? Or do you expect to see like one or the other kind of take the upper hand as we move here into, clay and then grass and then back to the US Open?
I mean, I think it really is dependent on how well Carlos can retain this level that he's at right now. Because right now, the level that Carlos is at, so Carlos lost at Wimbledon, and Sinner did a great job in that match after the disappointment that he had at Roland Garros in June of last year. And then at the US Open, Carlos just blew him away. Like, it just didn't even feel close. And here, obviously, Sinner fell, a match short of even reaching the championship and facing Carlos again. I think the thing is, like, when Carlos, like you said with the eye test, when Carlos is playing at his very best, he really doesn't make unrecoverable mistakes ever. Like, it just feels like he is such a superior athlete to everyone out there, including Sinner, that if he's actually playing well and is dominating the game, like, he's going to win. And Sinner can throw him off, but to me, Sinner always feels like he's trying to catch up a lot of the time. Like, his game is less adaptable, and Carlos's game can adapt to whatever Sinner throws at him in a lot of ways. And Sinner just has to out-hit him right now and just hope that Carlos has an inconsistent day, which has happened a lot in the past. I just am not sure that inconsistent Carlos may be a thing of the past. And if that's true, then I think Sinner's going to have his work cut out for him. I think he'll win a major this year. I don't question that, but like, I don't know that it's going to be 2-2 necessarily. But then if it's not, is it going to be Carlos winning 3? Like, I don't see anyone else here right now, unless somehow Novak does the miraculous, which I just don't see happening. I think Novak's going to keep playing, but I think Novak's going to retire this year. I don't know. Unless Zverev wins a major, I do think it's going to be all Carlos.
Well, I mean, it was always nice to see Zverev humbled by Carlos Alcaraz yet again. I've started to give up on Ben Shelton after his performance against Jannik Sinner. It's just like he's just not getting better against these two guys. Right. I think to your point about like, can Carlos still be inconsistent? The problem is that when he was inconsistent in majors, it was in Australia right. until this time, right? He's been much more dominant at the other 3, and now that he's overcome his issues in Australia, you start to wonder if the floodgates are just going to open. I think it's totally possible that, and we've talked about this, but I think it's totally possible that Alcaraz ends up eclipsing even Novak Djokovic's Grand Slam total. Whether or not that's a more impressive accomplishment than what Novak did in like the prime of the Big 3 era is a different conversation. But right. in terms of just like pure numbers, it's entirely possible that Carlos is going to get to 25 or 26. He's at 7 at age 22. He's played like 4 or 5 full seasons of tennis. If you project that forward, we're talking like 35 slams. Is that possible? I don't know. Like 28 slams. We're talking like we get into like really, really crazy territory.
Right. Which is just tough because I just don't think there's, other than Sinner, there's not real competition out there, as we saw all of last year. There was really no one who, like at the start of their careers, like Medvedev was there and he was able to sometimes knock one of them off. Zverev shows up occasionally, but at this point, it kind of feels like that old guard, like the intermediate group between the Big 3 and the Big 2, was still sort of there and could get results occasionally, but they're long gone now. Like they're not competitive, and so really the question is like, is Sinner going to compete every time, or is there going to be a new guy that's going to show up? I think it's going to be exciting to see, but really my eyes turn to Jannik Sinner now to ask, like, okay, he said after the US Open he was going to adapt his game. Like, was it just that Djokovic kind of had a fluke rolling back the years insane match that just like, how many times is that going to happen to you? Like Djokovic is the greatest player of all time. Like it's just going to happen sometimes. He did it to Carlos in the Olympic medal match a couple years ago, and that was remarkable too. And Carlos was just like utterly destroyed by that result. But just Djokovic can do that to you. He's done it to you for so many years, and obviously Carlos is now the top dog, I think. But I want to see Sinner hit another level again. But I think he's going to need to regain his confidence because he's kind of taken 2 body blows in quick succession.
He has to, or this rivalry is going to end. Which is disappointing. It's been amazing. And I think that Sinner is going to be, I agree with you. He's going to win one this year. Hopefully they're going to play at least 1 or 2 finals against each other again. I don't think this rivalry is going anywhere. Jannik Sinner has proven himself.
Certainly not.
I'm not going to hold one of the best matches I've ever seen by the GOAT rolling back the clock. I'm not going to hold that too much against Sinner.
No, I mean Sinner could win the French Open, and then all of a sudden he has a career slam too. So
totally, which would be awesome.
Things are very much still on, but we just need a little juice. We need to win every so often to keep things rolling.
Yeah. Anything else on the tennis, John?
Nope. I'm ready for the tennis to be back in a time zone where I can watch consistently. It's really what I'm ready for.
It was hard. The Australian Open is definitely the toughest one in terms of our viewership, but French would be much better.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. June can't come soon enough.
John, our next story is very simply one of the most shocking sports headlines I've ever received notification of on my phone.
It's really funny.
Which is that Bill Belichick was denied entry to the Hall of Fame on his first ballot. That was reported, I guess, late last week. Later on, I think today, it was reported that Roger Kraft is also being denied. Robert was confusing Roger Goodell. Robert Kraft is also being denied entry to the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. How is this possible? Bill Belichick is the most obvious unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer of all time other than Tom Brady.
Yes.
he came, I guess you have to get 40 out of 50 votes, and somehow he fell short of that, which means that no fewer than 11 Hall of Fame voters need to lose their votes immediately. Like, they should go look at the ballots, and whoever did not vote for Bill Belichick should be told that they will never vote for the Hall of Fame again.
No, I mean, that's just true. It's genuinely like a laughingstock situation. You had the entire league, like every single active player, active coach, NFL executives across the board off the record. Obviously, they can't speak out loud necessarily, but literally the entire league was like, "Are you serious? What is going on?"
It makes a mockery of the Hall of Fame.
100%. Like there is no like Bill Belichick, 6 Super Bowl wins, greatest NFL coach of all time. And like probably a top 3, if not a top, like at least top 5, if not top 3 coach in any sport of all time. Like he is up there as like someone who literally defined the face of their sport for almost 2 decades and did something that no other coach has ever been able to do in the sport of football. Like that's crazy. And the fact that he didn't get in, like obviously the Hall of Fame is a nothing burger ultimately. Like it doesn't really mean anything. But the reality is like it does mean something to these coaches and these players in terms of just the way they see themselves and the way they see the sport. And the track record of voting means that Bill Belichick 100% should have been voted in. Don Shula, the only NFL coach who has more like total wins than him, even though Belichick obviously has more Super Bowls, was inducted in his first year. Like he was a great coach. Obviously is a storied leader of men, but his stats don't even come close to Bill Belichick, and he made it in the first year. So the fact that they're making Bill wait for at least another year, basically because of weird voting rules, is just astonishing to me. And so I guess the question here is like, why do you think this happened? Because the simple explanation is, so there are 5 finalists that ended up kind of being on the docket for being voted in, and you needed to get 40 votes. And there were 3 players who had been basically eligible for a long time: Ken Anderson, Roger Craig, and L.C. Greenwood, and then Robert Kraft and Bill. And Robert Kraft and Bill both didn't make the cut. And these 3 players, I'm assuming that you know who they are. I've never heard of them. I
have no idea who any of these people are.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah.
So I feel good saying that they're like no name, probably good in their day players. Maybe we don't know ball, but Bill Belichick is like, should be the name at the top of the NFL Hall of Fame. And this just astonishes me.
Yeah. To read one of my own tweets, I kind of like was like posing, I think, 3 kind of ideas of why this could have happened. The first idea was like basically jealousy. Was did he like beat people so bad that there was just hostility or like jealousy because of how good Belichick was? The second idea was, is he being punished specifically for a cheating scandal like Spygate or Deflategate? And then the third option is like, does this have something to do with the way that Belichick has tarnished his legacy after his NFL career, and kind of like the embarrassing headlines surrounding him? Have those in any way kind of contributed to the Hall of Fame wanting to wait? I think the most likely of those is that he's being punished for Spygate, which to me is just not the Hall of Fame voters' jobs. I think that, like baseball, if the league wants to say that this person, like in the case of Pete Rose, like the league declared him ineligible so that he could not be voted on by the voters, that's fine, but that's the league's job to make. It is not the voters' job to be deciding to punish someone who's eligible based on those kind of things. It is the voters' job to look at the resume of the person and decide if they are worthy. And there is no more worthy resume, like I said, other than Tom Brady, than Bill Belichick. Yeah, to me, like, I think Roger Goodell has to be just having a panic attack right now, given all of like the negativity surrounding the NFL right now, in what has otherwise been an awesome season for the NFL, as we kind of preview what we hope is going to be an awesome Super Bowl with 2 awesome teams. But in 1 week, you have this disgrace at the Hall of Fame. You have the disgrace of Shedeur Sanders being selected for the Pro Bowl as an alternate choice. And then you have what we're going to talk about later, like the Epstein files entering the world of the NFL.
Yep.
Those are 3 just, reputation tarnishing headlines in what has otherwise been a very good season for the.
Yeah, I mean, Goodell is definitely playing damage control now, and what we've gotten used to from Adam Silver over the last year over on the NBA side of things. Goodell is getting some heat again, and again, I think Hall of Fame controversy is something that like I can get behind because I think the names are important, but ultimately, Bill Belichick's pride and ego isn't something that I like lose a ton of sleep over. But I do think that like if you want to claim that the NFL Hall of Fame means something, then he has to get in, or you invalidate the entire point of the Hall of Fame existing. Like it literally doesn't mean anything at all. It loses all of its integrity. It loses all of its meaning, loses all of the voters' integrity. And it's just silly, genuinely. I think that if Spygate really is the reason for most of these voters, then I think that's super hypocritical, given what we know, I'm sure, happens behind the scenes with most NFL operations. Like, you cannot convince me that they're not trying to get every single edge that they can and bending rules all the time. Like, we probably just don't find out about most of it. Maybe that's a bad argument, but to me, Bill obviously got caught, and it was like he got caught in 2 different scandals, which adds things up. But ultimately, I don't think either of them are egregious enough that that should count against him in this scenario. Especially the league hasn't punished him, like you said.
I'm also mad at the Hall of Fame voters for putting me in a position where I now have to come on a podcast and publicly defend Bill Belichick.
That's just not fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this podcast has been so weird for me because I have been having to do so much like backtracking of my own positions, right? I was very openly against Aaron Rodgers. Now I'm arguably his biggest fan in the world. I obviously have not been a supporter of Novak Djokovic. I've had to now backtrack and acknowledge that he is the GOAT and appreciate and applaud his efforts. I have not enjoyed Bill Belichick his entire NFL career. And here I am having to, declare that he is unambiguously the greatest coach in the history of the NFL, which is objectively true. But I don't like doing this. This is fun for me. But the Hall of Fame voters, by making this a massive scandal, have put all reasonably minded sports fans in a position where we have to publicly appreciate the person who haunted our nightmares for the better part of 20 years in this league.
There were times, I guess that's what's funny, is like there were times when Bill Belichick was like the most hated man in football.
Yes.
Like people hated Tom Brady. They really did. We forget that sometimes now that he's like a likable TV guy. But like I despised Tom Brady in the 2010s. And most people really did. They were like, it was like Darth Vader and Darth Sidious together. And they were ruling the world. And we were like, these are all of our collective least favorite people. I hope horrible things happen to you and that you can't get out of bed in the morning. And like, I hope you step on Legos and all the things. And the reality is like, we have to come out here now. And I guess what's funny is like you and I both felt those things to the max back in the day. But with the benefit of hindsight and the benefit of some time, we're able to put that like partisan rage aside and just be like, yeah, you know what? It was the worst, but like they're the greatest to ever do it.
It's undeniable.
And for some reason, these Hall of Fame voters who are literally in the game of football have held on to those grudges more than the raging fans who wish nothing but the worst for those guys. I don't know. It's just funny. If Tom Brady doesn't make it in on the first round of voting, I think we need to fire them all. Like,
I would be like appalled.
We should start our own.
They should shutter the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's over.
I'm so serious. If I was the president of the Hall of Fame, I would demand the ballots, and any ballot that did not have Bill Belichick's name selected, I would fire that. I would fire that person. I would.
There's someone in public life right now who's trying to do something quite similar.
Well.
Let's not throw stones while we all live in glass houses, shall we?
Fair enough. Anything else on this story, John? Do you want to comment on Shedeur Sanders and the Pro Bowl?
I just think Shedeur Sanders is literally, in terms of someone who's played more than one game by QBR, the worst quarterback in the NFL this year. And the fact that he made the Pro Bowl is just laughable. That's all I have to say.
Do you know who Brady Cook is, John?
Nope.
Brady Cook apparently played 5 games for the New York Jets this season. He started 4 games for the New York Jets, and he is the only quarterback in this season who had a worse passer rating than Shedeur Sanders, the 2026 Pro Bowl representative from the AFC, as the alternate choice replacing Drake May. Another institution that has just completely lost its credibility is the Pro Bowl. And that had already happened like years ago. Not nothing too crazy, but like he almost has to be statistically the worst quarterback ever selected for the Pro Bowl.
I would like to do that deep dive.
And it's the kind of thing too where like he already is a controversial figure, and some of it is, I think, merited, a lot of it is not. We talked a lot about like just one of the worst things that's ever happened to him at a draft, where just an unbelievably like malicious and cruel prank was pulled on him, and like I feel genuine sympathy for him in that moment. But like, this is not the kind of thing that makes Shedeur Sanders look better. For him to be given this spot, given how horrific his season actually was based on every statistical metric, it just, I think, builds up even more animosity toward him, for him to be essentially handed this honor, quote unquote honor, with no merit. And it's just not the kind of thing I think he needs. And it's disappointing all around.
It's the kind of thing that if the Pro Bowl actually meant anything, players would be really hyped up about beating up on him next year. But thankfully, no one cares. So
of course, yeah,
of course, a nothing burger.
All that to say, though, John, on Sunday we do have an actual football game, the Super Bowl, in fact, and we're really excited about it.
We are excited about it. I think it's a funny, like, I guess a trifecta of unfortunate reversals that are happening in this podcast, because in a weird way, the New England Patriots maybe are not like America's team this year. I don't think that's true. But there are a lot of people that I've talked to that are like, I hate to say it, but I'm rooting for the Patriots this year. Like, there are a lot of people who hated them back in the day. But it's just funny, especially here in Tennessee, where Mike Vrabel is still generally beloved, and there are many regrets about letting him go. It's good to see him. It's good to see him thrive over there. You know, obviously where he came from, former player of New England, going back in his first year and going all the way to the Super Bowl is just a really cool accomplishment, and he's done a tremendous job over there. So obviously the Seahawks are a juggernaut, but I don't know that I'm necessarily rooting for the Patriots, but I would be genuinely happy on my end if the Patriots won, which is just crazy to say.
Interestingly, it's the same thing here in North Carolina. Drake May is a Charlotte kid who went to UNC Chapel Hill, and so he has a lot of love in this area. Mm-hmm. I'm obviously like very pleased with the Super Bowl based on my predictions.
Yes, we need to acknowledge this. Before the playoffs, you picked Seahawks beating Patriots in the Super Bowl, and here we are. And you have an opportunity to for the first time ever in Crunchy Tackles history, successfully predict both the Super Bowl competitors and the winner of the Super Bowl, which has just literally never happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not going to deviate from my choice of the Seahawks. I think to me, it felt quite simple that these are the two best balanced teams. Like the team rankings prove this. We're talking about the New England is the number 2 offense and the number 4 defense in the NFL. The Seahawks are the number 3 offense and the number 1 defense in the NFL. Like, we're talking about two just amazingly well-rounded elite teams on both sides of the football. We're looking at a truly awesome matchup. I hope this game is really good. We're looking at 2 quarterbacks who are going to win for the first time the Super Bowl, either Sam Darnold after an interesting career, or Drake May in his like second season, which would be super exciting. And I think he's a really likable guy. And I'm not going to change my pick. Of course, I'm picking the Seattle. I think for the second straight year, Drake is going to be taking a high profile loss in the Super Bowl,
which is just tremendous.
Not the same Drake.
Not the same Drake, but a Drake well, which is really funny. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I have not even heard the name Drake, referring to the rapper.
Right, yeah.
Basically since like March of last year. Like the Super Bowl, genuinely, like he could be gone. He could have been like abducted by aliens and we'd have no idea. So Kendrick Lamar, undisputed champion. He didn't even have anything to do at the Grammys last night. But I didn't see Drake anywhere to be found. I don't know if he
Kendrick
was there.
Kendrick won a Grammy.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
For what? Did he have a song?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
A song with SZA.
Anyway.
I don't know. It was, anyway.
How much I keep up. But anyway, just to note that Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance did in fact end Drake's career, which is very exciting. Back to the Super Bowl though. So the last time we had this matchup was 2015.
Yeah.
The iconic Russell Wilson, Tom Brady.
Yeah, this is one of the most like dramatic games in Super Bowl history.
Probably the most. I mean, well, I guess we've had a few really dramatic endings in the Tom Brady era, but the Malcolm Butler interception to kill the Seahawks is one of the most dramatic endings to a Super Bowl of all time. And I don't know, it's funny. I was thinking about this game, and you know, it is obviously a different setup. I would say that to me, even though the Seahawks maybe have a couple weaknesses, to me they feel like the juggernaut. But there is some deja vu here. The Patriots, you know, lean on a very pass heavy offense. Drake May has been central to their success, but also their defense has been really good, which was always a highlight of a Bill Belichick team. And the Seahawks, very much in their defensive tradition, have just had an unbelievable defensive year. And I don't know, when I look at this game, I think I expect the Seahawks to win just because they feel like a more mature team. They feel like a team that is ready. Like they swatted aside the Rams ultimately. Like the Rams did push them, but it never felt like Seattle was on the ropes. And that was a really good game. They destroyed the 49ers. And the Patriots, you know, were obviously really good this regular season, but in the postseason, Drake May has been full of errors. He's fumbled a lot, thrown interceptions. The Seahawks have not committed a single offensive turnover this entire playoffs. Obviously, they had a game less, but still, Darnold has taken care of the ball, and they have forced turnovers, which, you know, the Patriots is one of their specialties is forcing turnovers this year, which was not really true for the Seahawks in the regular season. But now that we're in the postseason, like they are playing lockdown football. And to me, the question really is Drake May going to take care of the football, and is he going to be able to have the maturity in this spot to deal with the best defense in the league? Because Matt Stafford obviously could. Matt Stafford is a seasoned veteran. He diced them up and down the field. But still, it wasn't enough. And to me, when I look at Drake May, I think he's a good football player and a good quarterback. But I don't know that I'm looking at him and saying, like, you have the maturity to actually get this done in this spot. But then at the same time, Sam Darnold has never been here. So there is a little bit of a wild card, but I think you're right that the odds are very much in the Seahawks' favor.
You know, over the course of like a decade, you will generally have a defense that is recognized as the definitively best defense of that decade. Right. And I think about like from 2012 to 2015, the Seattle Seahawks were the best defense in football for 4 consecutive years. Before that, you kind of had like the Ravens and the Steelers alternating that selection. And I think that this Seahawks defense is going to be recognized as one of those like decade defining defenses. They are the closest thing to the Seattle Seahawks defense of 10 years ago, like the Legion of Boom Seahawks. They're kind of back. Like this defense is unbelievable. I think that they're going to be the difference maker in the game ultimately. I think that Sam Darnold I think he's always been very talented. I think that he has shown a lot of poise and a lot of composure in these playoffs, but I just don't think he's faced a test like this. And, you know, I think that it's going to be very, very different. I think that Darnold has shown enough that I think that he can be a successful game manager and let the Seattle defense be the difference maker, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Seattle defense score some points. And I think it'll be, so I picked 27-21 Seattle. But I think Drake May will score, but I just not enough.
Yeah, I guess if we're going to do an actual pick,
you have to do one.
I think to me the Seahawks just have too much. In the past, I thought that Darnold was going to kind of fade away in these big spots, and he has just proved me wrong every game this year. And I think it is his moment ultimately. He has been a really good game manager, but he's also not been afraid to like make some really audacious throws and actually pull them off, but like smart throws. He's not making stupid decisions. And I just don't see that going away now. Like his trajectory has been up and Drake Mays has been down during these playoffs. And, you know, I think my heart maybe actually wants the Patriots to win this as a little bit of an underdog, which is crazy. But I think when you look at the matchup, I think I'm going to go with Seahawks 31, Patriots.
I like that. In closing, let me say this. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, whoever the future quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be, Drake May is like going to win a Super Bowl. Like for those guys I just mentioned, like their window, obviously their windows are all open. Like I think Josh Allen has a good chance at winning Super Bowl. I think Mahomes will win another one, but like it's not like we've been talking about the AFC as if it was a big 2 for a while or a big 3 with Baltimore. I do not believe that anymore. I think the Patriots are as good as any team in that conference, and they're not going anywhere. I would be shocked if Vrabel and May together don't win a Super Bowl. I would be absolutely stunned if it doesn't happen for them.
Which is very exciting, and we wish them nothing but the best over here in Tennessee. Crying a little bit. We'll see how Robert Saleh does, but I want Big Mike back.
John, there's no easy transition from the Super Bowl to the Epstein files.
Nope.
Other than that, both involve the NFL now, which I don't know is something I had expected to happen, because up until now, it seems like the world of sports had at least largely stayed clear of the Epstein files for the most part. And I don't need to explain. I think everyone in the world, and especially in America, knows about the Epstein files. They know about Jeffrey Epstein's child sex abuse ring that he ran for many years, and the hundreds of victims that he and his friends abused. So it was shocking to see Steve Tisch, the owner of the New York Giants, name in the Epstein files more than 400 times in this latest batch of emails. And I think the headline of this story is that a current owner of an NFL team is under active investigation by the league for his ties to Jeffrey Epstein's child sex trafficking ring.
And I'm sure as a result, maybe not, I don't think no charges have been leveled against him, but like I'm sure the government is also investigating him as they are investigating everything in these files. So this is a really big deal. It's appalling. And I think it's important to note. So Steve Tisch, basically throughout these email communications with Jeffrey Epstein, was basically being set up with numerous women. Supposedly, according to him, they were all adults, which to me doesn't, improve the situation, especially if they were being trafficked in any way. I don't know. Obviously everything around Epstein was just vile and disgusting. And I don't trust his word as far as I can throw it, but obviously we'll see.
Well, it would just be weird for Jeffrey Epstein to have set, all of everyone else up with underage minors, but in this one case, it was strictly adults.
Right. I mean, it's
hard to believe.
Obviously, an appalling man, and any association with him, especially when he's not even denying it. That's what's crazy. Steve Tisch, through the New York Giants, put out a statement.
Yeah, you should read his statement.
Yeah, that he said, quote, "We had a brief association where we exchanged emails about adult women, and in addition, we discussed movies, philanthropy, and investments." Just to note, Steve Tisch is a Hollywood producer, has been for a long time. I think he produced Forrest Gump, I'm pretty sure, at least in part. Continuing the quote, "I did not take him up on any of his invitations and never went to his island. As we all know now, he was a terrible person and someone I deeply regret associating with." And Steve Tisch basically acknowledges that all of these communications are real, which, is pretty damning. The things that are in those emails are deeply degrading of women. They are obviously engaging in immoral activity, and, it wouldn't, without more evidence, information, like I'm not going to conjecture on air on like what exactly he did, but we all know how damning any association with Jeffrey Epstein is. And the fact that this is just out in the open, I think the NFL 100% has to run this investigation to the full, and ultimately, like anything they find, they need to kick him out of the league. Genuinely, to me, it's that simple. Like, remember, Dan Snyder had to sell his team. He was basically forced out of being the owner of the Washington Commanders for, bad stuff, but much less than being in the Epstein files and being associated with something that vile.
Donald Sterling was forced out of the NBA for making a racist comment on a phone call.
Yeah.
If what is potential, like if the investigation into Steve Tisch comes out as bad as it possibly could, this would be degrees more serious.
Oh,
And I think, like, honestly, to me, like, having your name in the Epstein files probably already is a finable offense. Like, that is conduct detrimental to the league. Just the fact that he's in the files.
That's true.
The fact that he had any sort of association. Like, I think he's probably going to get fined no matter what. The
100%.
question is, will he keep the Giants? And I think if this investigation brings up any sort of credible evidence that women, adult or children, were trafficked to him by Epstein, yeah, it's over for him.
I mean, that is the thing. Obviously, through these emails, I don't remember anything that was like alleged necessarily that was illegal. We just kind of are surmising from everything else illegal that Jeffrey Epstein did with similar people that most likely the situation was similar.
Well, and just the weird word codings that is all over the Epstein files, and how Epstein talked with people about his behavior is just like very coy and coded and hard to decipher.
Right. So, I mean, my guess is that if this is investigated correctly and not swept under the rug, as we hope in all of these people, the situations of all these people who are named in the files, Steve Tisch should 100% be removed from the league if the league wants to have any credibility at all. I mean, that's something that's, I think, very clearly not only is the right thing to do, but resonates with Americans of all political persuasions. Is like this needs to be dealt with, and it needs to be dealt with seriously, because the amount of incredibly important people who had very deep ties to one of the worst people in modern and even human history is just crazy. It continues to blow my mind every time we get new drops of information. And I mean, there's not really like a take to have necessarily here other than that, from my angle, other than that, I'm deeply concerned with the reputation of the league, especially if he sticks around.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, like, we'll have to see what this investigation actually pulls up. We'll have to see if the government gets involved. This is a story that we're going to monitor a lot. And I don't even think that we're done seeing the Epstein files. In fact, it's kind of shocking that he's the only prominent sports figure to have been implicated to the degree to which he has been.
I think it's interesting that, like, I would assume it's really a lot of it is because Epstein just didn't move in the same circles that, athletic figures necessarily were connected to.
Yeah.
But it is surprising to me that there aren't tons of ownership figures and executives that are more connected in than seem to be, at least right now.
Yeah, 100%. But this is a story that we're not going to be done talking about. We're going to come back to this. Our big story for today, John, we've kind of been all over the place in terms of topics and definitely sports. We're going to end with a story that, I feel like we have been on the forefront of from the beginning, which is LIV Golf and the Saudi Arabian sports-washing machine. And LIV Golf, of course, the Saudi Arabian funded alternative to the PGA Tour that enticed a lot of elite talent from the PGA Tour with the offer of more money, the opportunity to wear shorts, less like shortened tournament lengths, but mostly just the exorbitant amount of money that this group backed by the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund were throwing at these players. For about 2 years, I guess, LIV Golf just kind of existed. And the last time I believe you and I talked about this was when there was at least the framework of a deal between LIV Golf and the PGA to kind of reconcile. That's a deal where there has been nothing of substance to have actually come from that. It was kind of just the intention to negotiate, and we talked about it then, and then nothing happened. It just kind of stalled out. And now we are witnessing the beginning of the defections from the LIV experience. Specifically, Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed have both either returned or have announced their intentions to return to the PGA Tour. They are leaving LIV. This is a new program the PGA created called the Returning Members Program. This program allows major champions from the last 3 years, so any major champion between 2022 and 2025 has the opportunity to apply for reinstatement. This opens the window for a few other high-profile players like Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, Cam Smith, who have not so far taken the opportunity to return to the PGA, but have the ability to. Those who are returning, so in Brooks Koepka's case, they face significant financial penalties. They have a 5-year forfeiture of the player equity program that the PGA Tour has, as well as the need to make a very, very sizable charitable donation to an organization that will be determined in the future. And I guess my question is, like, this could be the example of just a couple guys who decided that they wanted to be in the best competition rather than take all the Saudi Arabian money. That's Avenue A. Avenue B is that this is starting to become a crack in the Saudi Arabian sports washing regime, which, coupled with Cristiano Ronaldo's apparent dissatisfaction in the Saudi Arabian Soccer League, a few other golfers' dissatisfaction with LIV Golf, and even, in the Premier League, Newcastle's inability now to make major transfer deals like they used to. I guess the question is, like, I don't believe that the money's running out, but has Saudi Arabia started to maybe give up on this project? Or maybe their money's not working in the same way that it used to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the last question, which is the money bringing the same dividends that it was before? When we look at the LIV stars that left, right, the major winners, like you said, Brooks Koepka, Patrick Reed, Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, Jon Rahm, Cam Smith.
Well, Phil's not eligible.
Right. Well, Phil's not going to come back. No, but right. I'm saying like the stars that
the ones who left PGA.
The stars who left for LIV, those are the people who are defining the face of LIV. DeChambeau in particular, obviously, is still at LIV and is negotiating with them for a new contract right now. He's slated to continue golfing through the end of this year, but his future is up in the air in terms of if he's going to stay or not. But he's unquestionably has been the face of LIV, I feel like, over the last couple of years. Like, he's been the guy who's competing at majors. Obviously, Rahm's really good too, but Bryson has been kind of the centerpiece. Koepka and Reed, though, have been two of the big faces too. And Koepka in particular, thinking back to, what was that Netflix show, Full Swing? Wasn't it called?
Yeah.
Like, Koepka leaving was one of the big storylines. Him leaving the PGA, going to LIV, that whole decision-making process, and then him going out on his own was a really big deal. And the PGA making Koepka come back, they are treating like a really big deal too. They're treating it like them bringing a star back into the fold. And that's why they pulled this program together. I think they are looking to start turning the screw by letting these stars come back and leave LIV kind of in the dark, because it's not like LIV has really generated a ton of traction in terms of real views, in terms of real audience. I think they've had some success with their live events, but ultimately, like, the LIV events are not like entering the culture in any significant way at all. And if the stars leave, then, I mean, it's dead in the water. DeChambeau is obviously still there, but he's complaining about the program. They signed on to play 52-hole events, and they're increasing it to 72, which is the same as PGA events now, right?
Yeah, and that's right? Like part of how LIV advertised was like, we're only doing 52 holes, while in the PGA Tour you have to slog through 72 or whatever. But now they're just reverting back to, I guess, yeah, they're reverting from 54 now all the way to 72.
Which is, what everyone else is doing. So DeChambeau is complaining like, I have to play more golf again, which wasn't even in my contract to begin with. I don't know. I think it points to players realizing that they're getting diminishing returns from being part of this program. And you see it in soccer too. You brought up Newcastle, which is kind of a separate question, but the Saudi Soccer League, so many players were going at first just because of the money. And now you've seen like the amount of players that are actually interested in going over there has really decreased. The Saudis are willing to pay less money than they were before to bring new players over. And you see more and more people who could go over there turning contracts down because they're obviously hearing negative things about what it's like to play over there.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia they tried to pull out the red carpet for Mohammed Salah, and he shut them down.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And obviously, like, they were bringing over a lot of Muslim players to kind of build up with a rapport with their fan base over there. And I think him turning them down does seem like it was a little bit of a turning point in the fortunes of the league, because after that, more and more people who are saying no, who could have kind of had a lucrative payout to finish their careers. I don't know. Do you think that this is like starting to spell the end for LIV? Like, is this just smart gamesmanship by the PGA and things are turning around? Or do you think that LIV can still bounce back? Like, are we predicting this too early?
Brooks Koepka was and is by far the best golfer who went to LIV in terms of their form when they went, and also their form since they've been there. I believe he's also the most recent major champion from LIV, the 2023 PGA Championship. or was Bryson's U.S.
No,
Open?
didn't Bryson just win recently?
Was that the most recent U.S. Open that Bryson won?
Sure.
Okay. But, I believe that Brooks is the best. So, essentially LIV has lost their best competitor, I think. And I do hope and I believe that this can be the beginning of the end. I think what Saudi Arabia and the Public Investment Fund and Mohammed bin Salman and the thing that they can never quite overcome is the fact that these athletes do care about competition and they care about popularity. They don't just care about money. And so when you are as wealthy as these people are, money is certainly still a motivating factor, but these guys are all well off enough that it's not the only motivating factor. And when you factor in other things like how many people are watching me, how popular is what I'm doing, that matters to these guys. And also, am I proving myself against quality opposition? And clearly Brooks Koepka and Patrick Reed, their decisions are primarily motivated by wanting to compete against the best players. And there is almost a universal acknowledgement that that still exists on the PGA Tour. And it never will exist at LIV. And, since the initial opening season, we haven't seen any, very, very exciting players move to LIV subsequently. I guess Rahm was kind of the only one who went a little bit later. But for the most part, they're not attracting new players from the PGA Tour. And now we're starting to see the trickle back. Again, Brooks Koepka is potentially turning down up to $85 million to be back at the PGA Tour. That's crazy. And obviously part of that is that he has plenty of money. But that's a significant penalty to take in order to be back. And so I do think that it is a severe warning sign for LIV Golf. And I think the whole Saudi Arabian experiment, like the Mohammed Salah thing, they offered him a ton of money. And he's, he and his family are set for life. And he has the financial freedom, and a lot of these athletes have the financial freedom to consider other factors when making important decisions. And the reality is that Saudi Arabia has only ever checked one box. They have only ever checked the box of money. They have never been able to offer mainstream popularity. They have not been able to offer quality competition in any of their sports washing efforts. And I think that we're starting to see that their foundation is a little bit too thin.
I think what's really interesting about this is the Saudis, when they started really heavily investing in their sports washing project, I guess it was 3 or maybe 4 years ago, probably something like that, they were doing something different than what some of the other Gulf states were doing. Qatar and the United Arab Emirates got into this business pretty early. The UAE bought out Man City somewhere around 2010, and Qatar bought out PSG. Those were both big purchases where they started funding an existing team that they believed they could turn into, basically a competitor with the biggest brands in the world. And both of them 100% succeeded. A PSG maybe is a slightly less successful product and project than Manchester City, but ultimately PSG won the Champions League. They're a really well-known brand. They've had some of the most notorious players in the world there. Manchester City is by far the most successful soccer team of the last 15, 20 years. Since the Manchester United era, it has been, both of those projects have been wildly successful. And, both of those countries, the UAE in particular, getting involved in F1 obviously has been successful as well. But the Saudis have taken a different approach. And the Saudis have taken the approach that they actually want to basically own sports. They want to take over. They want to take over esports, which they've been doing pretty well. They obviously wanted to take over golf. They wanted to take over soccer. They wanted to bring the best players that money could buy, including, one of the top 2 players of our generation. And they wanted both of them, right? They were swinging for the fences to create a competitive system that would outshine everything that Europe had to offer, outshine everything America had to offer. And they bought out Newcastle United. And it's interesting that in each of those projects, with Newcastle, they were late. So the Premier League and UEFA started clamping down financial rules. By the time Newcastle was purchased by the Saudi investment fund, things were different. They weren't able to put in the same amount of money that Manchester City was able to pump through their coffers, in the early stages of the UAE investing. And so that situation has been very different. Their unlimited resources don't matter as much for Newcastle. In the cases of both LIV Golf and the Saudi Soccer League, again, they tried to do something new. They tried to kind of create a breakaway league basically and say like, no, we're gonna bring everyone here, and we don't even need your brand. And the reality is that ultimately branding does matter. And you're right that I think the competitive spirit of someone playing in the PGA Tour week in and week out against the world's best, and then playing all the Masters or playing in the Champions League against Europe's best in soccer, that really matters to players. Like, you could offer Michael Jordan all the money in the world, and I think he wouldn't just give up the opportunity to feel like he's the best person to ever play the sport of basketball. And I think when you really have that championship mentality, you obviously want money, but you're right that it's not going to be the only thing that sways you. And I think, I don't know, I'm starting to wonder, like, maybe the Saudis were not playing this as smart as we thought, which is interesting. It makes me end up thinking that like the UAE and Qatar ended up getting kind of the sharpest side of the deal here.
I think not only was there strategy in terms of what you're talking about true, I think you're right about that. I also think that Saudi Arabia was kind of so just obvious and blatant about what they were trying to do that the cultural pushback has remained consistent and is having a real effect in a way that people are not pushing back on the UAE or on Qatar in the same way that there's significant pushback on Saudi Arabia's efforts. And that extends to the very, very significant backlash to the Riyadh Comedy Festival that happened. There still is, it's been very, very hard for like the Red Sea Film Festival to break through into the mainstream. They've had a few celebrities who have attended, like Spike Lee or Will Smith, but there still is a significant vocal opposition to what Saudi Arabia is doing in spheres, in movie making and in comedy and also in sports. And so I think that's in part because they've been so blatantly obvious about their attempt to just like take over. And that's not what you're describing with the UAE or with Qatar. In those instances, they're not taking over. They're kind of just infusing themselves into something. And right. They're obviously having a significant influence through their money, through their reputation, but they're not trying to rock the boat in significant or detrimental ways. And Saudi Arabia tried to rock the boat. And I think there was a time when you and I were quite fearful that it had worked almost perfectly to their liking. And now it is looking like maybe, like I said, that the foundation for what they were trying to do, while they built some pretty things on that foundation actually was too thin to actually accomplish the goals that they meant to. And I think that's heartening. And I would love to see, one or two more LIV players leave and head back to the PGA Tour. I would love to see. I don't know if I'd love to see Cristiano Ronaldo back at Manchester United, but I would love to see him I would love to see him force an exit. That would be humiliating to the Saudi Arabian League, and that would be, I think, wonderful for myself and for morality and for decency. Even though I don't view Cristiano Ronaldo as the standard of morality or decency, but I would rejoice to see Saudi Arabia be embarrassed in a public way.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that the way you framed it, like, I think you're right that the UAE and Qatar have both been successful in winning and not rocking the boat. Like, I think their brands ultimately, obviously Qatar hosted the World Cup, which the UAE didn't. And, there was tons of controversy and human rights violations and all kinds of things that happened around them, but they've kind of...
And backlash. There was a lot of backlash.
And plenty of backlash. Yeah. But their actual sports washing project minus the World Cup, in terms of PSG and Qatar Airways and all that stuff, has been pretty under the radar other than just advertising. And the UAE has been very similar. To them, it is like a state PR venture more than anything, and a state financial venture. And Saudi Arabia really did swing for the fences and try to just take everything over. Film, comedy, sports. Like, they tried to position themselves as owning Western culture. And ultimately, I think people, for good reason, bristle at that. Just like the Chinese government, trying to take over cultural institutions also doesn't work well with Western audiences when we know, what's going on behind the scenes, people being purged out of the government, police state shutting people down, people being executed in concentration camps.
Minorities, yeah.
Yeah, like I think obviously sports is not, as we talk about literally all the time, is not like the paragon of world morality. But I do think that people people have some form of moral standard, and probably more importantly for views, have standards of entertainment. I think what's ultimately the funniest thing about this is like the Saudis swung for the fences and made a bunch of really boring products, and people just really don't care.
Yeah, I guess like to me, like the number one criteria for has this been successful is has a single person in any sport gone to Saudi Arabia and become more popular? The answer is definitively no.
Absolutely not.
And for someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, Brooks Koepka, Neymar, whoever, like that does matter. And so the reality is, and we've talked about this, the people who have gone there have disappeared into a very, very well-paid obscurity.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that in many ways, I think that the traditional sports, and this was led by the PGA, held the line.
That's true.
You know, the Premier League held, Liverpool held the line, but the PGA in particular held the line. Not perfectly, but they did not capitulate, and now I think they're going to reap the reward of it. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy to see it.
Is this our first sports washing win ever?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there have been years and years and years where we have had just like doom and gloom episodes over and over and over again. Like we are losing our sports. We are losing our sports. And now, I mean, it's a small win, but I feel like we've turned a corner.
Brooks Koepka forfeiting up to $85 million to get out of LIV is a win.
It's a small win, but we're climbing back out of the hole, which is really historic for this podcast after 6 years.
2026, the year of optimism. We are back.
We're so back. The Saudi influence on our sports and entertainment worlds is decreasing, even if it's a little bit, and that's something to celebrate.
Yeah. Anything else on this, John?
No, I mean, I think really my takeaway is that like this is unique because I don't remember feeling this way in a long time. I don't remember feeling like, oh, maybe we could actually like come out the other side of this and not have our sports and entertainment run by a regime that still beheads people and, you know, dismembers journalists. That'd be really nice. And, you know, maybe we're not fully there yet, but at least in a small part, we're coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're excited to see it. We'll obviously continue to, I watched a little bit of Brooks Koepka's return to the PGA last weekend. He didn't do amazing, but it was, you know, honestly, very nice to see him back. And so I'm excited about that. And we'll continue to obviously monitor this story if any other players join the wave. Let's hope it becomes a wave and that more people follow in their footsteps. So I think that's it for the podcast today. We covered a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, just a note, clerical note, Bryson DeChambeau did win the US Open in 2024. So
okay. He would be the most recent LIV major winner. Before that, Brooks Koepka, and I think the reason why I was thinking about Brooks Koepka is that it was kind of embarrassing because he won the one that said PGA on it while he was part of LIV. Like he won the PGA championship as part of LIV,
really
which was just very, very difficult.
But ultimately, Chad, you know who the real winner of the last year has been? The last like 12 months?
Who?
Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy held the line. He won for the PGA Tour. He won for all of golf. He won the Masters. Rory McIlroy is the king of golf right now, and that's just really important. That's really important.
By every definition, Scottie Scheffler is the king of golf right now, but Rory McIlroy is like the senior statesman.
He's like the spiritual king of golf.
Yeah, 100%. Even
Scottie Scheffler is like the really cool general who we all know is going to replace the king eventually,
right?
Even if by force,
but will never lose a battle.
Yeah,
like early era Napoleon.
He's the Toranaga of golf.
Good comp. Well done by you. I think that's it for the podcast. We're super excited for the Super Bowl. Sometimes we actually we have occasion to podcast like the day after the Super Bowl. I don't know if we'll be able to do that, but we might, depending on how the game goes. I know that would be a quicker turnaround, but we have done that in years past, and we're obviously it's just the biggest sports and culture events every year. So that's super exciting. And I hope that you all enjoy the game and get to watch it with friends and family and whoever you're rooting for, that you have a fun time. And I think that it's going to be very, very strange, not only to watch a rematch of the 2015 Super Bowl, like you said, John, but also to have a much more open-hearted experience watching the New England Patriots, like you said. And I'm not sure how my mind or my emotions is going to handle this, but I'm very curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, my only hope is that it's just not a Seahawks blowout, because to me the only blowout that's going to happen is a Seahawks blowout, and I just don't want that. I want a good game. This is the first time that we're not going to have. I guess there was one Super Bowl where we didn't have the Chiefs, but like the first time in a while where it feels like the Chiefs are not front and center this year. And so I do want like actually good competition for once. So
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. And of course, we will be back next time to talk about the beginning of the Winter Olympics, as well as recap the Super Bowl. And so make sure that you are subscribed, that you're following the podcast, however you would like to. Follow John and I on our personal Instagrams and social media to get some other content from the pod. And we're excited to continue to grow and see where things take us in 2026. And so until next time, we hope that you all continue to be well and be safe, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Cheers, guys.